Good day. The frames for the beans are halfway up and the bean canes are all different sizes. So these are shorter here than these up here. Those over there are a bit shorter as well. But you know what? I'm just going to go with the artistic value of it this year and not worry about my OCD on everything needing to at least look the same or look, what's the word? Regimented, a bit regimented. So it's quite a hodgepodge of different sized bean canes for what is this year an X frame. If I come over here on my neighbour's plot, you can see that there's an X here, and what my hope is that the beans grow up here, and then when they get up here they produce their beans which hang down this way, making them easier to pick. That's the idea, at least, giving the beans in this very likely final growing season here a bit of X factor. So yeah, so there's a pole, a cane at the end here going straight down into the middle. There's another one you can see there, and then there's another one at the end here, and these are going to be tied in to give rigidity. I am actually going to tie all of these in this year, which I didn't do last year when I did them crossing right at the top. And the reason I didn't cross them at the top last year, or tie them at the top last year, is my thoughts were that as the beans wind up the canes, they then wind around the top, locking the top bar in. But as this bar is lower this year, and just for rigidity, I'm going to tie each of these in. So I'm going to get on and do that now. I may, you will have noticed that I took out all of the rebars, the metal rebars that had bottles on them, and I may use them along the way to add rigidity if needed. So I might put one straight down, sort of like the middle one, but at the end here and here to give rigidity. But if I do that, you'll be seeing me do it, so we can talk about it then. But yeah, I'm quite liking my Heath Robinson X Factor structure this year. Each of these sets of canes has been tied into the crossbar now, and the three vertical ones have been tied in as well, and we'll see how this does this year. The X frame did fine for us, was it last year or the year before? But I do think I could have got my bamboos all the same size. In fact, I'm not sure I could have done, because I think some of them have broken anyway. Well, they have broken. Some of them are broken as I put them in, so that's taken 6 inches or a foot off some of them. So yeah, it is what it is. And then tomorrow, hopefully we'll start doing some sowing. And then around this area, and potentially right at the side, we'll do bush beans as well, I think. Or as I said last week, as my dad calls them, or they used to be called in the UK, dwarf beans. Not sure if we're even allowed to say that anymore, but yeah. And I'm leaving those brassicas in, at least for the time being. And then if we have a look here, I mean, you can see these broad beans, the highest ones are maybe 4 foot. I would have thought 4.5 foot, maybe. This one here and that one over there, that one there, 4.5 foot. and I am watering them. We can see there black fly, and the red ants, I'm not sure if you can see red ants in there, are milking the black fly. Not really any ladybirds. We have had quite a few ladybirds around and about, but none seem to be here. I do see them in other places. But yeah, the beans, if I just try and get in here, they're beginning to start fattening up now. Or the pods are beginning to start fattening up, at least. Yeah. And then if we come over here, the courgettes that we put in are holding their own okay. Then these are our cucumbers. This one's been a bit nibbled. This one's been a bit nibbled. And this one being completely nibbled. So I'm going to use some Grazers Slugs and Snails on these. You'll remember we do have spares, so I can swap this one that has been eaten out with another one. I don't think I'll do that today because these only went in a few days ago, so the separation of the pots only happened a few days ago, so I'll most probably exchange this one that has been eaten at the weekend, or certainly later this week. So yeah, I'm just going to spray these with Grazers Slugs and Snails. Yeah. I was just going past this mullein, this Verbascum, and noticed a few holes in leaves and what looked like black droppings, which made me think there must be the mullein caterpillar. I'm not sure if you can see, but it's here. Small one. I think there's another one somewhere. Oh, there's another one in there. Can you see in there? There's also a tiny grasshopper there. And there's another bug. There's a ladybird, look. Ladybird there. Where's the other bug I saw? Oh, down here. Oh, he's moved. Look, he's gone further down. You can't see him. You see him? There he is. There's a shield bug in there. But yeah, Verbascum caterpillar. Oh, and there's one of the other ladybirds. And the white and black ones. But yeah, those are telltale signs, those holes in the leaves, of the mullein caterpillar, which is rather amazing, and becomes a moth. So yeah, unfortunately you need to sacrifice the plant, but the flower will still come on these. That's the end of this first segment of a week at the plot. And I'm really pleased to have got those bean frames in. It feels quite an achievement. In fact, everything I'm doing this year feels quite an achievement, even if it's quite minor. You know, like taking out the oaks the other day and potting those up. And I found another one today, so I've done the same. So that's 6 that are now potted up. And we had a conversation, or a few of the plot holders had a conversation at the gate the other day about these oaks. And we think it wasn't squirrels. We think it's either jays or ravens. We do have ravens around here now. One of our plot holders, who just lives 200 meters from me, has got a bird feeder in his back garden, and the ravens regularly visit that. And we think they are actually nesting on Warren Farm. So it could be ravens, because they would quite likely pick them up and then drop them, you know, because that's what corvids do, and of course jays do the same. I was talking to Vivi the other day. I think she's going to do a video on this, because she was mentioning that jays are ground feeders, and of course it's quite likely that they could have picked up acorns and buried them themselves for eating at a later date. So maybe that's why we've got oaks growing here when the actual oaks are about 400 meters away from us. But yeah, who knows? We'd have to put a camera on the site, or several cameras on the site, and see if we catch something. We once again have very few very few parakeets around. You may have noticed that you're not hearing them as much. That's because the peregrines that are 400 meters behind me this way, they have 2 fledglings, which are quite large now, in a nest at Ealing Hospital. If you go onto YouTube and put in peregrine falcons Ealing live cam, you'll see the live cam of them. But there are 2 that are 2 fledglings there, or 2 young chicks. They're quite big. They haven't fledged yet, i.e. they haven't left the nest. But they are learning hunting skills without, well, they're learning ripping apart skills, if you see what I mean, and eating skills. The hunting skills will come later. But yes, we have noticed in the last few weeks that parakeets are few and far between again. Yet we're not seeing as many green feathers in the peregrine falcon's nest. So I think the parakeets are avoiding the area more than they were avoiding it last year. Maybe they have a memory of peregrine falcons now and are going to avoid this area when they see a peregrine falcon flying. Anyway, there we are, just a bit of rambling about oaks and jays and peregrine falcons and parakeets. And that grazers that I've used, you can get the same for aphids and cabbage white butterflies, or not the same, it's a different concoction, if you like. But it's supposed to make the leaves taste quite bitter, or it makes the leaves unpalatable for whatever is feeding on the leaves. So in this case, with the slugs and snails, it makes the leaves unpalatable to slugs and snails. So we will see if that works. And as I say, I've got a spare at least. Well, we've got 5 spares that we can put in. We will see how it goes. And as with last week, the planes are really throwing out from Heathrow this way this week so far. So yeah, there we are. But that's it. I was really pleased to see the mullein caterpillar, or the 2 of them, because they are just such glorious caterpillars. They really are. But as I say, they do rather devour the leaves of the Verbascum. But the flower will still come up with a spike. I'm sort of hoping that the one that we've got hidden in the brassicas isn't going to be found by a mullein caterpillar. I suppose, will the eggs have been laid last year for that caterpillar? I don't know. I'm going to have to look at the life cycle of a mullein caterpillar. Anyway, instead of waffling on, I'm going to go home, and I will see you soon another day. And I have watered the broad beans, by the way. In fact, I've done quite a bit of watering today. But I didn't water the courgettes and the cucumbers after I had sprayed on the grazers. Obviously, you want that to dry on there. So I'll water them tomorrow, but not today. See you very soon. Bye. Good day. I have strimmed. I didn't think you needed to see me strimming, because you know what that's about. Though again, if you are going to be strimming and it's going to be long grass in particular that you're doing, or anything that you can't really see deep into, please make sure whilst your strimmer is off that you put your fingers down into where you're going to trim to make sure that there are no frogs, toads, hedgehogs, slow worms, you know, beetles, you know, that type of thing, because all of that is going to add to the biodiversity of your plot and your site, and it's going to benefit not only nature, but it's going to benefit you as well, because you'll have lots of predators of snails and slugs, because that's what those things are. They eat slugs and snails. That's part of their food that they eat. So the more of that you've got on your plot and your site, hopefully the fewer slugs and snails you will have as well. It's a glorious day today. Quite a lot of white cloud, but there's a blue sky out there and it is warm. I'm rather loving my watering can being completely overgrown with grass, and so are two frogs that are living at the base of it. And look at that thyme to the right, just glorious. The other day we put up our bean frames, our Heath Robinson X Factor bean frames, and when I was coming down today, they did make me smile when I came around the corner, because they are so higgledy-piggledy this year. They really are. Different sizes, different heights, you know, it did amuse me. And what also amused me is I was watching Vivi's video this morning, which her video, I think it was titled All About Beans, and she was talking about bean frames and, you know, all of that. And when at the beginning, when she came down her path, she was holding a whole load of bean frames, bean poles, bamboos, and they all looked about the same size. So it did make me laugh. So I sent her a message saying, oh, well, that made me laugh, you know, yours are so, you know, regimented compared to ours this year. But that's fine, you know. It's the fact ours aren't regimented this year is not a problem, and I will get over it if I find it a problem. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sowing 3 types of climbing bean today. And all I'm going to do is put my finger with a glove on down about 2 inches to make a hole, drop a seed into that hole, and then just sort of cover it up. I'm going to do 3 seeds per bamboo, 3 seeds per pole, and hopefully at least 2 of those will grow to fruition, allowing for 1 to be munched by slugs and snails. Though hopefully, if our biodiversity is in balance here, then hopefully there will be fewer slugs and snails, as I said before. So that's what I'm going to do. Vivi had a really good way of doing her beans, which is using a dibber, and I've not seen that before. Has Vivi done that? I'm sure she must have done that before, but it hasn't registered with me that that is a way to sow beans, and I thought that was pretty good. Later in the week, I think we're going to do some bush beans, and we'll be doing sort of similar with those, though I think I might sow a few sets of modules of bush beans, dwarf beans, as I said we call them in the UK. Anyway, back to today. What am I going to be sowing? Madeira Maroon. Great as a dried bean and great as a bean pod to eat too. They're really lovely and waxy, and as long as you I don't find they get stringy, but as long as you pick them sort of when they're a decent size, up to about sort of 4 or 5 inches, they are absolutely fantastic, either raw or steamed. Golden Gate, a flat yellow bean, very buttery in colour, and you know, whether it's your mind thinking as such, I'm not sure, but quite buttery in taste too. I think the yellowness of the pod of the bean does help with that. But again, a really good bean. These I find do tend to get a little bit stringy if they are too old when you pick them. Again, sort of 4 inches to 5 inches is usually okay, isn't it, with so many things? And finally, Shaz's Scarlet Emperor runner beans, bog standard. Shaz of the Kingstone 8, I'll link to her channel here, sent us these 5 years ago, not sure, and we have been growing them year on year since. These were harvested last year. What I'm not doing this year, and I've kept some at home specifically because of this, of each of these varieties, I am not sowing to have a harvest of beans at the end that I can dry to sow on in future years, because we're not sure how long we're going to be here. You know, if the house takes a while to sell, then we may be here into some part of the next growing season, which for me starts in October. However, if it sells more swiftly, we'll be gone before. And if we are gone before, then the beans won't have reached full maturity to be able to save seed from. So what I've done is, in each of these 3 cases, with each of these jars, I've taken 16 seeds out and I've kept them separate. And they are in they're in a jar in the fridge, but they're going to be kept for sowing in future years rather than this year. So I hope that makes sense. The thing is, I love Shaz's Scarlet Emperors. I love the Golden Gate. I love the Madeira Maroon. We're not going to, Shaz would send us more of her Scarlet Emperors. I know that. Madeira Maroon is a bit more difficult to get. Golden Gate is quite easy to get, but because we've been growing these year on year for quite a few years now and saving the seed to then sow and grow and harvest for food and for seed saving, I want to make sure that some of these are kept. So that's why I've kept, I think it's 16 or 20 of each of the seeds. Madeira Maroon is more difficult to get. If you're a member of the Heritage Seed Library, they do occasionally have them. But if you know the Seed Detective, I'll put a link to his webpage here. I know that he has them as well because he found them. The Seed Detective, he gave us a lecture in the community hall of the charity, 5 years ago, something like that. And that's when I first got some of these seeds. I think there was 20 then. And I have grown them each year. And he found the seed in Madeira, and they are maroon, hence Madeira Maroon. Anyway, waffling. Let's get sowing. That's the 3 varieties of beans now sown and given a really good water, or 2 good waters in fact, with 30 minutes between them. Just been sitting making notes whilst the first watering soaked in, and finished my notes and watered them again. So fingers crossed, we'll see how they do. And at this front area we've got the Golden Gate, then we've got a block of Madeira Maroon, then we've got Shaz's Scarlet Emperor runner beans. And actually after that first sowing of Madeira Maroon, I felt that the ground really needed forking up with a hand fork, so I forked up inside of the bean canes, because that's where we want to sow climbing beans, mainly so that the root system did actually have a decent airy soil to get into once the roots started going down, because I felt it was a bit compacted, maybe because these had had brassicas in over the winter and therefore not a great deal of care. They hadn't been covered as other beds had. But yeah, that I forked up the soil on the inside of the canes with a hand fork, and then I sowed, as you saw. And the thing with climbing beans, you want to sow them inside of the bean frame at the bottom of a pole, because as they grow you want them to blow in the wind and to reach out and touch a bean cane, because by touching a bean cane, that's how they know that there is a bean cane there, or something there that they can grow up, that they can then start twisting around. Yes, don't sow on the outside of bean frames, sow just on the inside of bean frames, so that those beans as they grow can feel the pole and know that they've got something to climb up. It's also been the first outing with this new watering can, and it's certainly much more gentle. The rose is much more gentle than my other green watering can that I use mostly, and I think it's a matter of getting used to it. So we'll see how we go. I mean, you know, I've got it, so I'm going to use it. Right, I'm going to leave it there for today, and I'll see you again later in the week for a further segment of A Week at the Plot. Bye. Good day. It's about 9:30 on Saturday morning. I think apart from one of our resident beekeepers, I'm the only person down here at the moment. I did meet one of the trustees of Catherine-Buchan Meadow, who was leaving her plot, having picked up tools to go and do a work party at Catherine-Buchan Meadow, which is at the top of the road from our allotment here. She created that meadow from wasteland, which was lovely. I'll put a link to the Facebook page if I can. Yeah, and I'm just sitting here at the moment, and I'm going to have a pottering morning, just going round looking at my notes I made the other day and doing certain things. Like I've got lettuce seedlings, or they're sort of small plants now, that are going to go into this bed in front of me here, with the other lettuce, the red lettuce that you can see are doing really well. I think that red lettuce must be outrageous lettuce, save seed from one that we grew 2 years ago, I think. It's not what I thought it was. Labelling, you know, it's important to label things. And of course the first thing I did when I came down was look to see if any beans had germinated, but of course they haven't. Unfortunately, that Grazers Slug Snail defence didn't help 2 of our plants, so now we've got 3 that have gone virtually fully, 3 gone. I'm going to keep the others that I've got in pots for another fortnight. So I'm going to keep them in pots for another fortnight, let the plants grow on larger before I plant out again, or that's my plan. I think it's time to cut down the cross of the Nero di Toscana with the Portuguese cabbage that you can see on the left. That is now going to seed. I've got plenty of seed of that, and I don't need any further seed. So it's fed the bees, it's fed other wildlife. So now I'm going to cut it down, and I'm hoping that I will be able to keep it as a perennial, because you may remember that was actually grown 2 years ago, was cut back by me last year and regrew. So I'm hoping that if I cut it back down, it will regrow again. That will open up a bit of space there. The Portuguese cabbage in front of us are doing fine. The broad beans, I mean, I've never seen such fantastic broad beans, and I think all of these broad beans are Vivi's broad beans, I'm sure they are, and they're looking absolutely grand. As I say, some of them are standing sort of like 4.5 foot high, or 2 of them are at least. All of the others are about 4 foot. So yeah, it's just going to be a pottering and a weeding day today, which I definitely do need to do. So I'm just going to get on and do that. But first of all, I'll take you with me just to have a look at the things that we brought out now onto our bench. These are the lettuce here, Lollo Rosso, that are going to be going in with the other outrageous lettuce. And I brought our tomatoes out, the volunteers that we took out from the bed where the lettuce and carrots are. They're the ones with the question mark. Then at the back is Guernsey Island. Over here is black crim, but we've had a bit of slug damage in the poly, which or snail damage, I think it was. So I did put some slug pellets out, some organic slug pellets, and somebody else was helping me, and I said, oh, just put a few, and a little bit heavy-handed here. These are the Chadwick cherry that we put in as seeds a few weeks ago, and there's one seedling you can see there so far. So yeah, I think this is going to be it with tomatoes. We've lost sort of 2 of the black crim, so I think we may end up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 tomatoes in total. These are gherkins, which I was given by another plot holder, and I'm not sure whether to put them in the poly or not. If you've grown gherkins, let me know. I sort of feel they might like the heat a little bit more, but of course our cucumbers, as long as they grow, are outside, and gherkins are just like cucumbers, so I'm not sure. And then at the back here, of course, the Hottentot-figs, which are loving the sun. So it's early in the morning, so this bench is only beginning to get sunshine, but by maybe in about 2 hours time this bench will be flooded with sunlight, which is grand. I'm not sure if you can see too clearly, but I'm sure that this here is a hedgehog run. I can see quite clearly into the hole, and it goes back, and at the bottom here the grass is sort of trodden down. It's trodden down both sort of inwards and outwards, if you see what I mean. And in this area here is where I know I've seen 2 adult hedgehogs, and this is sort of like a big enough hole for them, but not big enough for foxes. If this was a run of a fox, the hole would be right up here. It would be bigger. So yeah, I haven't seen them for a few days. What I did see the other day was the grass snake that we've got here. I saw that for the first time a couple of weeks ago. I haven't got it on camera yet. The thing is, they move so quickly, you know, as soon as they feel your feet on the ground or maybe smell you in the air, they're away, and she's away really quickly. And I say she because the one that we've got here, if it's, you know, if I see the same one each time, it's about 4.5 foot, I would have thought, maybe even 5 foot long. So is definitely a female grass snake and not a male, because males are significantly smaller. I think they only grow up to about 1 meter, something like that. So yeah, but look, I'm just going to get on with some weeding now and putting lettuce in. So I'll most probably chat to you later on in the day, or maybe even tomorrow. That's these 2 beds weeded and watered. I'll give them another water in about half an hour. Let that first watering soak in a bit. And I've weeded out the weeds that I wanted to weed out. There's some California poppy that are self-seeded in there, so I'm leaving those in. There's some coriander or parsley that are self-seeded. I'm leaving that in. Feverfew, leaving that in. Calendula, particularly in the far bed, I'm leaving that in. Where I can see that the hawthorn hasn't struck, where they have died back completely, I've taken those out. Where I can still see growth coming, I've obviously left them in, and I think those will need good watering over the coming months. I've also found, I'm not sure if you can see just here, there's some red. That's, I think, self-seeded outrageous lettuce. This is where we had the outrageous lettuce a few years ago. I think that has self-seeded, and I'm leaving that in too. But that's 2 beds down, about another 12 to go. So I'm going to say goodbye for this week's A Week at the Plot. If you've got any questions or comments, please do leave them down below. If you want to leave a thumbs up, please do. And I will see you again on the Planet Vegetaria for further segments of A Week at the Plot next week when I do them. And then, of course, there'll be another upload on YouTube in a week's time. Happy growing, everyone. Bye.